Lingua Britannica is a podcast that uses ethnographic interviews to study language use in the extreme metal community. We are studying a music scene known for its love of themes and topics generally considered offensive, and it is likely that some episodes will touch on topics or opinions some listeners may find tasteless or ethically problematic. Ethnographic researchers aim to adopt the interviewee's point of view so that we can draw out and study the attitudes, beliefs, and practices that are important to them. We want to make it clear that in presenting these conversations here, we do not endorse any of their content. Our aim is to explore the thought processes behind language use in this long-running, international, and yet understudied scene. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Lingua Britannica with me, Jess Benny-Smith, and my co-host Wes Robertson.
Hello.
And today we're continuing our exploration of New Zealand's metal bands by talking to Matt Hyde of Beastwars, who are based in Wellington. Is that right?
Yeah, Wellington City, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so how are you doing today, Matt?
Well, it's the shortest day of the year. We have a lovely storm. It's almost nearly dark. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, right.
An appropriate day to talk about heavy metal.
Yeah, got a scene for it.
Yeah.
Cool. So starting off as we always do, would you mind just describing Beastwars music for somebody who's never heard of Beastwars before?
For me, well, I think Beastwars is really based around four individuals, and you only get that after the amount of time we've spent together. So it's a group that's now 15 years in. All with original members. It's like a family I can't get away from. I think maybe it's the magic of Beastwars is actually, doesn't matter what music we made, it's the four individuals when they're put together in that room. And it ended up being Beastwars.
Mm-hmm.
Did you all get into metal together, or did you get into metal on your own and then meet?
I grew up like punk rock, Joy Division. I grew up in a sort of the outer suburbs of Wellington, a place called Lower Hutt or Hutt Valley. I came from a place called Stokes Valley, and we used to put on shows, and we played music like Black Flag, American US hardcore. That's what we were really into. Then James, who's a tiny bit older than me, he was sort of into Crass, really sort of political punk rock, but then also he came from quite a small country town. Nathan's 10 years younger than us, so he grew up in the middle of the grunge. And Clayton, big Sonic Youth fan, massive Cure fan, but loved Metallica and played in a Metallica band at school. So yeah, there's no traditional heavy metalists within our band.
So how did you actually make the transition into metal?
Clayton would be that because of Metallica song, because he can do it with the downward strokes and all that stuff.
Right. So what was the transition like from like that kind of like, punk and that kind of thing to like full metal?
I'm 50 now, so I met them when I was 35.
Okay.
I've been a punk band. When I was in England, we were sort of, we were in a band that sort of was like Black Sabbath, but Bauhaus. We got signed by the manager, the ex-manager of Bauhaus at that time. So metal was never, I wasn't ever going towards, it just happened. I don't know, maybe I just got frustrated. It just got, it just got meaner over the years. I didn't wake up, when I was 16 going, I want to be like that. This bizarre transition to other character.
So when you started, writing metal and making metal music, did you have much background in how other people were approaching metal lyrics and metal singing, or did you just kind of go with what interested you?
Never thought about it. Only I was quite into country there for a while. I lived in Auckland when I came back from London, and we lived across a bar, a sort of warehouse, and across the way was this bar, and they used to have these New Zealand country singers, Al Hunter, Richie Pickett, and it was sort of like this was like mid-90s. It was the hangover of the early 70s. So their fan base were always like real washed up, crazy, hippie. It was bizarre, but I just loved the stories they told on stage, and the heartbreak, and it was just amazing. Up until then, lyrics, I hadn't really thought about lyrics, but after seeing a lot of country gigs, and this is like New Zealand country, but no one's even heard of, and it's just so underground. But these people could get like 300 people sometimes on a Saturday night. It was just wild. After that, I tried to, if I could, in any songs I wrote, I tried to have a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I kind of failed miserably at it. But then I sort of, when it comes to Beastwars, because it was sort of, we kind of incorporated that sort of Michael Moorcock, early 70s sci-fi, Eric. Or for, I sort of had a vehicle to incorporate maybe human themes, but hidden behind, I don't know, fantasy or science fiction. Mm-hmm. I tried to incorporate country music with science fiction. I don't know if I achieved it.
When you talk about New Zealand country music, I've never heard of it. I think you're right that many people that listen to this have never heard of it. What were some of the features of like New Zealand country lyrics that really grabbed your attention?
I was like 25 or 26. These guys were like, nearly 40. Uh-huh. Their good days are over. It was just great. It was just sort of bitter. I mean, absolute beauty sometimes. Like if you've broken up with a girl, this is the best place to go, because you just drink beer and just listen to these. I don't know. It's really incorporated something amazing. I mean, New Zealand country is kind of like a resurgence of this kind of cool. Marlon Williams is really popular here and stuff like that. I mean, I assume he's quite popular in Australia too. So there's all that new stuff. But these guys were like, like Richie Pickett, one of the best things he ever said is like, he was playing one night in Auckland, and he says, unlike most country bands, we actually have to drive back to the country tonight. And they did. They had to drive to Cambridge, which was 3 hours away after the show, after they'd been drinking. I can't, maybe it's closer to, is it Tamworth in Australia? That sort of, that style of country. I'm talking about that style of country. Mm-hmm. In the inner city, we sort of do our thing on it, but these people really were from the country. So, I don't know. And also, you'd hear a lot of covers. He was kind of like, I'm trying to think of the artist. But it was, this great storytelling. And also the whole time, another great Australian is Nick Cave and his storytelling. Tex Perkins with The Cruel Seed, another great storyteller. Those other two people I loved their stories within their songs. But yeah, I don't know. I never planned heavy metal. Heavy metal just came for me.
So I suppose what we didn't ask before was, if you were to categorize Beastwars music, what kind of like genre or subgenre of metal would it fall into, would you say?
I think, we've toured with a lot of American groups, and they keep on going back to us that we're like, it's an amp reptile music, sort of, trying to think who's on that. Was it Drugs Died from Fucking in the Street compilations, that label? It's because it changed the bass player, his style of his bass. It made its own sound. I mean, Nathan had to learn how to play drums to even do it. He's a bass player. But I don't know. And Clayton's really into that post-punk, early 80s stuff, but I don't know. It's just really, we're like 4 albums in now on one live record. It's bizarre. It was never meant to be permanent. It's really hard to think back. Nothing was ever meant to be. It was just what it was. It was at the time. It was big. People were creating music, but maybe that's in New Zealand. And we've toured Australia, I think, 8 times, but in New Zealand we sort of crossed over to a bigger audience. And even mainstream, we've been to the mainstream awards here. I think because we did come from all these different kind of backgrounds, we're actually not from the metal scene.
Right,
And it wasn't, I was just so frustrated at that stage. Like, I'd lived in England, lived in Australia, lived in Auckland. I just hadn't broken through, but I'd been trying to be a singer. And so when Beastwars came, the screams were just, it was just primal. It's like, I've had enough. But, you know, what do you know, but anyway, it just turned out it kind of became kind of popular. So, yeah, that was the other strange.
Right. Yeah, because your music has been described as like sludge metal or stoner metal. Are those kind of labels that resonate with you, or do you find it's like a bit too restrictive to kind of like put it into that pigeonhole?
I have to admit, like when I don't smoke marijuana, and I tell my daughter not to do it because she's psychoactive. But I have to admit, it's like when I was a teenager in the early '80s, when you go to concerts and you'd smell marijuana within the audience. That was the whole ritual of rock and roll. Obviously, marijuana has become super strong since then. But like our last show in Wellington, we got to a stage in the show and I could just smell people just lighting up the joints, you know, as we're playing. And to me, that's the ultimate compliment of a musician is when that happens. It's like just like early 70s or something, or what I imagine, you know, 1968 to 72 would have been like, you know, any concert around the world. But yeah, stoner metal, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, labels don't really bother me. We've been lucky enough to have people buy tickets and come to our shows. So I'm very thankful for that.
As you've continued to, you know, play metal and tour with metal bands, things like that, have you developed more of a personal interest in metal, or do you still find yourself mainly listening to, you know, things like punk, etc., on your days off?
I'm amazed by people's musicianship. Like actually touring Australia, like the level of musicianship in Australian bands, pretty exceptional. I don't know if they get to play more times a week or whatever, but yeah, you can't help but admire that. Out of the metal bands, who did I like?
I mean, if you don't want to list like specific people, that's fine. I'm just curious, like, has the genre become more?
I was just trying to think of people that played live that just blew me away. But yeah, I suppose I'm always listening for the hooks because I do also come for that sort of thing of pop. Like, you know, it is a metal, you know. I don't know, it's hard to describe. But I'm traditionally not a big metal listener.
So I'm guessing then, like, when you write lyrics or write your music, have you ever really cared about whether or not they are quote unquote metal?
Oh, well, one thing I do love about metal, you can get really pagan on it and you can talk about swords and blood. And, you know, it's just, you can feel, because he's such I always kind of find it's like, it's the church for people who don't like to go to church. I mean, they mostly hate to admit it, but, you know, most of these people are mostly you know, they're the refugees from the churches they grew up in as kids. And they still long for that sort of social connection that church gives to people. I mean, I'm a non-practicing Catholic. I know, you know, I've gone through all that ritual and, you know, but God, they used to put black crosses on us on Ash Wednesday and make us say, tell us your sins. I remember having to lie. Well, I don't really have to. You know, so you make some up. Oh, good sins. Yeah, no. Yeah, there's so much ritual in metal. So I do think it's like church for people who don't like church. And people can go there and scream, you know. And people can speak in tongues. If they want to.
Yeah.
You know, it's just there's something about it. I think so many people are just disappointed with the modern era of the world and the way it is. Just for everyone that's having a great time, it's fucking 9 people who are struggling. It's just something about the metal show that will actually bring such different groups of society together. I always sort of compared them to the people who actually are building shit or making stuff happen. Remember when AC/DC played in Wellington, the audience, that was the whole economy was there. Anything you needed to get done, you could get from that audience. They could build you a fucking bridge, you know what I mean? They were there. So they're the doers in life. Some of them drink heavily and some of them don't, and some of them are straight edged and some of them are terrible junkies. And some of them will, just so many elements to it. I'm kind of amazed by the human condition of heavy metal. I think it's kind of a beautiful thing. I don't ever really talk. People have started talking about it because I've read a few things, a few papers about how heavy metal can actually make you happy if you're depressed. So there's science behind it. But yes, it's like it's a mirror on all of us. But yeah.
So is that how you would then like define metal? Like if you were to like distinguish metal from like non-metal music, is that the kind of main like theme that you draw on?
One thing I did, loyalty is incredible metal. Yeah, it's just a different, because I played in other bands with sort of different styles, but you never have the loyalty. And God, people come and tell you the most craziest shit, the most personal stuff. I think also because I did have cancer, and I have had a lot of people since then come up and tell me their stories or their family stories. And you listen to it, and it's just like, my God, But obviously, they feel this is a safe, shared space that we can talk about it. And I'm very respectful when I listen to these stories because I can't imagine what they've gone through. Because we're all individuals, but that's the beauty of metal. It's created something really special, and it's made. It's not on the radio. Made by human beings, and in most labels these days are just the band themselves. Of course, maybe especially in New Zealand, that's how it is. But, it's very DIY. I like the punk rock DIY attitude of it. Sometimes I think punk rock is just so elitist; it's really horrible. Just can't stand it. But maybe I just grew old.
You don't see any elitism at all in metal?
Maybe New Zealand's so small. It's black metal people slag everyone off, don't they?
Yeah, it seems to be.
They're famous for that a little bit, yeah.
You're not true cult.
Yeah, that's it.
With a K and a V, right?
We're the band who wouldn't play with us because we went, dark enough, whatever, evil enough or something. But I got told some of those guys were at our last show in Christchurch. This was years ago. This happened. We love it, but we finally gave in and said, "Oh well, we'll go and hang out with you then." But yeah, I suppose of course, all that stuff. It's elitism, isn't it? Yeah, maybe it's elitism. I try and feel that why can't we all be inclusive? With enough stuff in life just putting us down, so you create a space where people can forget everything and just come and celebrate, I don't know, birth, life, and death. Let it be. But yeah.
So we talked a little bit before about the lyrics that you've enjoyed. What would you say makes for good metal lyrics? What's the kind of recipe if you could give one for good metal lyrics?
I think a good story. Actually, I suppose is it "Fade into Black" by Metallica? That song. I think that's a great story. There's one. I suppose it's the biggest metal song I can think of right now. But I think, and strange is he always plays that the good and the bad and the ugly soundtrack because he's into westerns. So I bet he loves country too. I think it's having the beginning, the middle, and the end. Sometimes, I suppose there's so many different types of music, but I don't understand because what is it? Is it deathcore or metalcore? Is metalcore really big in Australia where they scream heaps?
Yeah, that was pretty popular for a while, for a time. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't even tell you what the lyrics are. If I could hear a story. But that's my personal opinion.
Is there something on the other hand that you think is kind of common in metal lyrics that you don't find appealing or that you try to avoid?
Sometimes I try and it's quite easy to throw in satanic imagery. Well, I find it. If you want to look for cult everywhere you can look, it's cult is everywhere.
Yeah.
So actually, I'll give you an example. I took my daughter. I got free tickets to go and see what's that guy? He's really popular. gingerhead singer, huge one of the
Ed
biggest.
Sheeran?
Ed Sheeran. Okay, yes. I went to Sheeran. So I'm sitting there, and he's putting all this satanic stuff in the back, like the imagery and the dragons, and I'm going, this is like a Led Zeppelin show. And I'm looking around, and like, no, everyone was obviously unaware of what was happening. But I was going, oh, he's using all these tricks. Yeah, I try and avoid that. But yeah, maybe you just start seeing it. I don't know. Is it real? I don't know. That's why I try and avoid it. I'm trying to write more stories if I can. But then, yeah, that it doesn't always work out, and I do resort to, I would call it fantasy or sci-fi imagery to help pad the story maybe, or hide the story. Yeah. It's hard to write about yourself or write about people you know.
Yeah, well,
why
definitely
is
something
that?
we'll get into.
Well, in a country like this, which is so small, it'd been like, you know, I'm going to find out pretty fast. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I find it really difficult. I'm not in America, like, you know, millions of people. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah. When did you actually start writing lyrics for the first time?
You know, I used to really worry because I would just sing what I felt. So I was always trying to achieve that sort of improvisation moment. Bang, here we are, and we record. I was really, really worried about that until I read an article about Bauhaus, and they did it. I read another article about David Bowie, how at one stage he was just cutting out words and throwing them on the ground, then trying to make sentences, and you know. So that sort of made me more comfortable about, there's no actually right or wrong way to do this. Because sometimes you'd read these things that people just wrote was perfect, just coming all out. So I just kept them going, and I actually still continue trying to write, even though I'm not planning on doing a record at the moment. Just to get better at it. Also reading. When you start, try and read. I recently I've been buying books about like a few New Zealand artists, and I was just trying to read. I suppose you guys would be familiar about it because you guys work at university. This is the way they write, the way academics write about art, and it's so descriptive and long. It's fucking massive sentences.
Yeah.
But then I see sometimes I might see a word or color word. Fuck, I'll steal that. It's fucking good. So yeah, and I've recently tried to write a lot more poetry and a lot more away from what heavy metal is. I went on this trip around New Zealand by myself, and I think I lived in Wellington, but I drove far north, and I came back, and I was writing the whole way, and I was just like, at one stage, I was told, whoever was speaking to me was going, you must go to Rotorua and buy Buddhist flags. So, so I went and did it. I went 300 kilometers out of the way to go and get these Buddhist flags, put them in the car, and then I had to keep on stopping because I'm writing, and yeah, it was incredible. It was almost like there's something else there pushing you, and then whoever that force or person or being or ancestor, then all dissipates and they're gone, and then you're sort of left empty for a long time again. Yeah, it was a special gift. I don't think I'll ever forget it. That journey. I mean, whoever was visiting me. And I saw a lot of crazy stuff on that trip. Far north. Yeah. I don't know. You're writing. Are we opening a gate? To our souls. Maybe that's the danger of writing. If you start getting good at it, or it starts working. We reveal, I don't know, how we actually feel.
Do you have a like set process when you're trying to write lyrics for an album, or like going on what you're talking about right now, like going on journeys or trying?
I think subconsciously that trip was about, because I think I was wanting to do a record. I was just insane at that stage. We come off tour, not it doesn't take much for me to feel insane. So it's just like, but it definitely was. So yeah, the journey was just, So yeah, it was a whole thing of writing. And then I continued to write when I came back. I don't know, I never written so much as I did that summer, which is like this last summer. But then I stopped again. It's ended. Yeah, I don't. Honestly, it just turns on, turns off. When I was sick, at cancer, it was kind of weird. I had been writing quite heavily up until the moment I got my diagnosis, and then I kind of started towards the end after possibly nearly finished my chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
It came back again, like a yeah. But quite often I can write in the studio if I'm forced to, like bang, do something, put it up. And I'm just looking for hooks, I'm looking for lines. It has to fit in here, and to say I get one good line, then my brain will go, hey, throw that line in. Yeah, but I've enjoyed writing a lot of stuff recently. But I couldn't even imagine being in heavy metal. Just about my childhood, like. The border between this bridge between sort of Pākehā land and Māori land, and my father's grandparents' house was on the other side. And like we went, we crossed there. It was like going from two worlds. And all these memories came back recently of when I was young, like really young. So that's the gift of writing. It enabled me to kind of make sense of it and put it down on paper. I don't know if they'll ever be songs though. But if music allowed me to get to the point when I'm actually sort of writing and making sense of how I was at 5 or 6, what a gift writing is.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about the writing process as being so personal and such a kind of cathartic process, because a lot of research has really argued that metal tends to take a lot of distance from its lyrics. Like you hear a lot of musicians and lyricists saying like, oh, my lyrics have nothing to do with me personally, and it's all about fantasy, and there's none of my kind of personal experience embedded in them, and therefore they shouldn't necessarily be taken at face value or taken seriously or anything like that. So I suppose, how do you respond to those kind of like opinions or takes on metal lyrics?
I think I'd failed at being able to write about myself or write about people. I hadn't had any success. There was none of the songs I wrote that anyone enjoyed or liked to the level that I thought would have been cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with metal, I actually got to hide myself within the lyrics. Yeah. But then as the albums progressed, then I had more freedom to come out and say, no, actually, this is about me. Or this is about, yeah. Which, yeah. And by that stage, we had an audience that's willing to go with us. We've got a new single coming out. It's all held up because the printing presses are really, really crazy around the world. Really different song I've ever written. Yeah, I can't wait for people to see that. I think people would really change. It's a story, a fucking great story, which I won't, but yeah. No, I think maybe I'm being lucky to keep on being able to develop writing through metal, because that's the beauty of metal. If people enjoy your music, they really kind of stick with you. It's quite incredible. It's an incredible audience.
Have you had members of your audience come up and talk to you about your lyrics and or read into them?
Yeah, I've had some great stuff. Damn the sky, this one guy, he said, I love fighting on the street to that song. And I never really thought it was a street fighting song. I went, okay, yeah, every time I go into fights, man, get something. Yeah, I just met some crazy people who like our music. It's like, okay, that was more about, yeah. But then a lot of, I think it was the second album, actually having a Melbourne, young guy came up to me going, your lyrics has just allowed me to get through some lot of heavy shit. And I went, oh, wow, okay. And I thought, oh my God, I'm sort of walking on sacred land now here. I better be careful, because we're getting to the next stage of creating reactions. That's, so I thought, it has to be fucking, you're going to get through it. Yeah. That was pretty, yeah, I mean, there's people out there who listen to music, I reckon, highly for mental health reasons, who are struggling immensely, do not know how to get through, and heavy metal, it can just, it can just help you. It can have goalposts to keep on going. like you're climbing a mountain. And there's some, pop music doesn't really do that. Indie music, only a very few bands manage to pull that off. It just seems so like, but heavy metal and country, I think, is really similar. Because country music does the same thing. It pulls people through tough times and keep on going. And maybe that's the secret of life. You just have to keep on going till the body's totally worn out and you're gone. The pain of life is actually the unraveling of the secrets of life. I mean, since, I suppose I don't really talk about this much, but since when I got sick, I went to university after I finished my chemo and I became a nurse. And I'm a nurse now. And I've seen a lot of death. And I just think it's the human body will just not give up. But until they finally give up. That's affected also, I think, the way I look at, not that I started writing an album about that, but I've had especially experiences of working night shift in an aged care facility where a lot of people have passed away recently, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're walking with your torch in the hallway, and you can feel, sometimes you feel they're still here, that they haven't actually quite left yet. The spirit, it's just, what is the human condition? And I think it's so much bigger than all of us. I don't know. It's just, if I do get to do another album, I'm sure there's going to be some of that in it. Some of that. I just feel, life is continually full of mysteries. That's all I'm learning at 50 more years to go, most probably.
So do these comments with your fans and these kinds of experiences have definitely kind of changed the way you think about like your lyrics and their role in the music?
I did, there's power. You have power at that moment. I mean, if you're singing songs of hate, you create hate. What is it, metal? Well, metal's a lot of frustration, but there's always eventually almost all of the songs is about you to get through, and it's hope. This is what people are telling people. I mean, that's how I feel it. That's how I think it should. I'm going through this crazy stage right now, but my daughter's a teenager and we're driving the car today, and she said, can I put on that black flag? I just went, what the hell? And it's just music I loved as a kid, and she would put up the TV Party Tonight. It's on the Repo Man soundtrack. And then she's playing Suicidal Tendencies, that song about all I wanted was a Pepsi.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, just watching, and I said, do you play this? Because I separated from my mum. Do you play this at mum's house? Oh, yeah. And I just loved it. I went, oh my God, because there's angst there, but there's also like, I'll get through, I'll figure it out myself. But there's total power in words. People should be very careful what they're singing. There's spells, If you put out darkness and negativity, it will come to get you. It waits for you. You open gates, it will rush in. And you can try and hide from it by using drugs or drink, but it's there. It will come and get you. I mean, I've learned you've got to be careful of what you're projecting out. It's bigger than most of us, bigger than all of us. It's just other forces. But I think people have to be careful with words. Like I'll just say, words can change humanity. The right sentence or statement at the right moment can change the direction of mankind. We're dealing with some powerful stuff. I mean, that's how I see it.
The idea of the strength of words, I think, is a kind of a good segue here to what we were wanting about some of the words you've chosen to kind of use on your albums. And in looking for through the albums as a whole, we've definitely seen some tendencies that have continued that we want to talk about. But the first thing we want to ask is just something that we felt was kind of distinct between your albums, which is the amount of lyrics. Early on like your first album, if we compare lyrics like songs like Daggers or Storms of Mars to your most recent release, it seems that you've been adding more and more lyrics to the songs as you've been writing as an artist, like just the total amount of things that you say in one song. Is this something that you have noticed yourself, or was it a conscious shift, or did it just kind of happen?
I remember being pushed by Nathan to write more. At the beginning, I was very content. It was shorter songs, but I suppose it was around the second album when we went into the third. Nathan was he's incredible. We're very lucky to have him in our band. He's very driven. It really pushed me to say, you need to write more. Like, okay, that's really cool, but what happens next? Sort of thing. So I suppose it'd be like an editor. I mean, I've never had an editor, but an editor who pushes you like, well, yeah, okay, I get it, but you need to do more. So that sort of naturally happened. But then it also, well, how should I say it? And then it also naturally happened at the same time, because suddenly when I started opening that sort of gate, more words did come out, because there was much more ways to describe what was happening. But I mean, the difficulty is that when you actually go to play live, you have to remember all of them. And that, so that becomes a real challenge to become so focused to do a live performance. It's but yeah, no, the songs got bigger and bigger.
Yeah, well, especially in your case, because the words are a lot more audible than we hear in other metal genres. So.
That was another thing within the band that people were pushing me, going, okay, we love what you're saying, but no one can hear it. Can you start saying it more clearer? I had to learn how do you do this? I mean, there's heaps of people. You can, 2 examples easily, I just said before, like Tex Perkins and Nick Cave, they do it perfectly. Audible, angry, great stories. So there was heaps of people to like copy or learn from. But definitely hard, especially when you're trying to fit them into that sort of gap. Especially, but no, yeah, our band sort of really works and really creative. I feel like we're making art. It's just, this isn't just a band. This is like, it's going to echo. And if it doesn't echo, I'll be really surprised. Maybe it won't. Maybe that's the way it is. But yeah, I've been driven by people pushing me. Keep on more. What can you do? So I think actually, if anything, Beastwars are very lucky to have it. Everyone's pushing each other to try and hopefully be the best. Because quite often we can push each other to be our worsts, but we survived it. The level of just fucking horribleness and rudeness towards each member, by each member, is, not normal. We normalized it. It's just insane, but it has created some great art.
So one of the commonalities across, songs off all 4 albums, it seems to be that there's a lot of focus on themes of mortality, death, destruction, as well as some kind of apocalyptic end times events. What inspired you to kind of explore these themes in your lyrics?
I think looking back now, I was really frustrated and angry. I was super depressed. I was still dealing with who I was. It's hard to say. I was a heavy drinker. And other stuff would also get in the way. But I've really worked on myself to become a better human being and to actually sit and to put that aside. But at that time, it really was. I suppose I was screaming for rebirth, but I couldn't work out how to get there, because every album just led to destruction, personal destruction, physical destruction. I would sometimes feel morally bankrupt. I would, just hated myself. So that's death, destruction. But now thinking back, I suppose what I was screaming for was rebirth, redemption. How do I walk? How do I walk through this valley of death and fear no evil? Because I've asked all the evil to come here. But, I don't know. It's just changed again, because I feel I've worked out this way of living, and it's very quiet, apart from the odd relapse. It just gets fewer and fewer between, and it's the most beautiful thing of growing older, and it finally positive decisions in your life you actually see fulfillment of those dreams, and you get these great rewards. But those albums definitely was the huge subjects of, but that was my personal destruction. And I also confused myself thinking I needed to do that to make art. And that's the scariest place to be if you're thinking you need to destroy yourself to get that line, to get that story, to put yourself in the most horrendous situations just to get that story. What are we doing? I think they should warn people when they get into music. It's a dangerous place. You're dealing in stuff much bigger than yourself. Sometimes I can see it, in a performer when I see they've lost it. Like they're in that complete. You see them on stage for an hour, but you can backstage it's just their mental. They've pushed it too far, and they may not come back. Some of them may not come back, and we know that some people don't because they kill themselves. They don't know how to re-enter the world. Sometimes it's easy to open those gates and go forward. But I keep on thinking, words are spells. Be careful. Be careful.
So your first 3 albums, so Beastwars, self-titled, Blood Becomes Fire, and Death of All Things, have been kind of referred to as like an apocalyptic trilogy. And in interviews, you've said that when the band first formed, you only intended to release 3 albums from the beginning. Is that right?
I was more. That was Nathan's real big idea, and I think he accomplished that goal because he went off to London after it all finished. Our last show on that era was in Brisbane. Massive argument backstage, and that was it. That's all but yeah, the 4th album was a surprise because I got sick, and we sold some T-shirts, and helped me sort of live because when as sick these days, in life is very expensive. But anyway, so many T-shirts were sold. I thought, fuck, we could do an album. I have something to look forward to, and so it changed again. I do love at the moment, no one's doing a record at the moment, attitude. But I went and saw Nathan the other day just to pick up something. I said, well, you can put a guitar up. I'm writing for album 5. I'm like, oh, here we go. Definitely his plan. I was amazed. In New Zealand to get to that stage of having that many albums is really a beautiful achievement. I think we're something really proud about.
So what was the reason for the trilogy of post-apocalyptic theme?
I think he just wanted it.
Okay.
Like Nathan was an editor and works in the movie business, or more television, but I just think he just thought that'd be perfect. And then when we sort of every time I think it's over, it continues. You guys are another example. I don't have to talk about Best Before It's Over. And then I get this email from Wes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, the academics. Okay, we'll do that. I thought that was great. But yeah, I don't know. I never had, it is what it is. But Nathan's, he always won 3 albums.
One thing we also noticed within the kind of discussion of destruction and the apocalypse, etc., is that there are a lot of references to gods in Roman history and mythology. In Blood Becomes Fire, there's the reference to the Imperium. It seems to talk about the Rome sacking of Jerusalem. There's the song Empire at the end of your self-titled release, and there's even references to A New Rome and Storm of Mars off your new album. Is there a reason that you keep kind of revisiting Roman mythology throughout your work?
I was on this family holiday, and it was horrible. It was raining, it rained 10 days or something. I was stuck, top of a cell phone. I did have a Roman book of mythology, or just, and they're talking about slaughtering the horse at this time of year to celebrate. Yeah, there's heaps of imagery in it. I've had my dreams I got visited by gods and what I thought were old gods. And I sort of craved for a time before Christianity, when there was many gods, not just one. It's boring just having one. You know, this. Yeah, it's a whole. I think it's a craving of who is the time traveler? Am I the time traveler? Is this even real? Did I die in London? Is this all imaginary? You know, I just had an episode in England where, it just is. Yeah, there's heaps of stuff I've always thought. Is this even here? Are we even here? Is this even real? But yeah. I suppose I found it quite soothing that there was many gods because you couldn't make them all angry at once. Huh? I really felt like I'd made the main god real angry.
Yeah.
So, maybe I was looking for a way out. Also, give them power. You speak about them, you give them power.
Well, it's interesting though that, like, although there is a lot of reference to Roman mythology, Roman gods, that kind of thing, it doesn't seem that you're necessarily consistently referencing just one set of gods, because, you know, you've got songs like Devils from Last Night and Some Sell Their Souls, from Death of All Things, that mention angels and demons that are very, you know, Christian mythology based. So why did you decide to draw on like these diverse representations of deities and gods in your lyrics?
Sometimes, I mean, I don't know, there's such light and darkness. Even in some of the toughest, horrible people you meet, there's still light in them. And you can see it. Well, I can see it. I can feel it sometimes. You know what I mean? It's just, I can also feel evil and anger and all that stuff. So that's terrifying to have that ability. I feel I have that ability. And I felt crowds like oceans. So many emotions, it's like fuck. You know, it's like going on stage, it's just full on. It's like, I can feel them. Yeah, I don't know. I just think there's many things to all of us. So there's definitely demons and angels in all of us, and I know it's in myself. Just the stillness. I just feel like it's a storm, and I'm just, you know, craving for the stillness afterwards. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I just believe in them.
Yeah. Okay. Totally valid. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned like oceans and storms, because that was the other question we were going to ask, is about, you know, repeated references to nature in particular, you know, the moon, the earth, oceans, rivers, mountains, and the sky in your lyrics. So like, why are these motifs important to you?
Well, in New Zealand, Tanawa Whenua and the land is really important here. And my journey in this band awoken something, because I got to travel to a lot of places in New Zealand I've never been to. I got to see all these things. Like one incredible time, we're flying from Dunedin after finishing Blood Comes Fire, and the moon is red. You know, it's fuck things. You know, just now we know it mostly was a fire or something in Australia. It blew over. You know, the atmosphere. At the time, I was like, oh my god. And also in New Zealand, I don't know if you guys have been here, but it's a really beautiful place, and it's very easy to go from sea to mountain. And it's all around. So as the albums progressed, it was just maybe it's my anchor. Maybe it's the only thing that keeps me real, and to prove that this is real, because the land is real and the land breathes. So it was very easy. They were my, you know, I may scream it, whatever, but speaking about the land, the rivers of the sea, that's my sort of good place. It holds me, comforts me. And I believe it comforts everyone. If you're willing to open your heart to it, you will see it. That's why it's there.
So I guess this is a very basic question, but do you often write outdoors?
Do I write outdoors?
Yeah. Do you find like being out in nature when you write lyrics, or
it generally would come to me afterwards.
Okay.
You'll see something, or sometimes I've written and things have become real. Like I've written before the situation has happened. That's a weird thing of writing. Like it can almost help you see the future. But you know, I never really sit outside. I'll just write at home. Sometimes on the bus, actually. You know, we've got these new technologies, these phones that you can type into, like computers. I've done that. But I try and buy these notebooks, these quite big ones. You just have them here. But yeah, not outside. But I will go outside to look. You know, I mean, it's just the way it is. mean, New Zealand's really beautiful. It's just, I mean, where I live right now, even though it's in a city, it's right next to a town belt. There's a massive storm outside right now. Rain is pelting down. It's just, there's heaps of stuff going on. So it's easy to write.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about Death of All Things, because that was originally designed to be, as you said before, like the final album or the final word from the band. And, I've seen in other interviews, as you've kind of mentioned earlier, that, you talked about this, like making of this album as like kind of an exorcism of frustrations and difficulties that you and the other band members had experienced during that time. And I was wondering, like, how do you go about designing lyrics for an album that's supposed to like represent like the final word of your band?
It was almost like a finale. It was easy. There's a few stories I wanted to say. Easy.
Yeah.
And then... No, but for me, I was like, okay, bang, here's these 3 main songs in here. Those, actually, at the end of the day, they're the most important statements of the album. But then as we started doing the album, other things were revealed, as they normally are, and you weren't expecting. And then you have to work to put them in, to incorporate the ideas. There was heaps. It's easy for me because I've got quite a good memory of people's faces. Maybe not their names, but sometimes the emotions on their faces all the time. Yeah, it was easy. I was all people to say goodbye to, or stories, or to celebrate, or to say sorry. I think in that album, I'm really just trying to say sorry. Bottom of my heart, I'm sorry. Because I've been put in a situation because when I had chemotherapy, I was living by myself. There was so much downtime between your treatments. And with cancer, you get a huge burst of activity from people coming to help you. And that sort of drifts off because people's lives are really busy. So and everyone thinks you're getting better because you're like on your 4th treatment. And the tests are coming back and it's all looking great and everyone's really happy for you. But everyone sort of drifts off and then you're really left by yourself. And that was, a really lonely time to think about life's decisions. So it was easy to say it. But then my life changed again. So, it's just, you're thinking that's the end of the movie. But no, it's not. Life goes on. But and now I feel past of this new era of actually feeling old because I thought like, shit, I've turned 50. Like I'm never actually, because even in your 40s, you can kind of con yourself that you might be a tiny bit young. But when you hit 50, it's really, you are middle-aged, you are old. And also at the same time, my daughter's heading teenage now, and it's like it's reinforced every day because I'm trying to be a parent, trying to get good advice, trying to how do we get through this? Yeah, life has become, I never knew being a parent to a teenager is actually like a full-time job on top of your job.
Right.
It's just, every fucking moment, you drive. I was doing night shifts at this aged care, so I was driving out there because up coast. I was driving out there just worried about it. I mean, if you do your night shift, jump in the car and you're worried all the way back, and it's just this ongoing thing. It never seems to surprise me. We continue with different challenges. I'm sure all you guys feel exactly the same because life just changes again. Even when you think it's all over, sorted it, changes again. But yeah.
I mean, one thing that we kind of noticed looking at your lyrics, especially compared to many of the other bands that we've interviewed, is and we're seeing this, in this interview as well, the deeply personal nature of some of the stories that you tell. I think one that mentioning cancer, one that we thought was quite direct and really impactful was on the album 4 on the song "Storm of Mars," where you talk about wanting 10 more years to see your child grow, which we read as reflecting your experiences with cancer. And I don't know if that's correct, but we were just kind of wondering, how do you approach taking something that's so personal and writing it into a metal song that you share with the world? Is this something that you've always been doing, and has your way of doing it changed over time? With the new album, when you're reflecting on your experiences with cancer, was that similar to what you've done in the past, or that changed the way that you were writing these stories as well?
At that moment, I had an opportunity to be honest. I had an opportunity to tell the truth. And I had an opportunity to speak beyond the years of my own life. Just say if I don't make those 10 years, at least my daughter knew that I tried to make a deal with the gods to give me 10 years. That song's to me, that song's a spell. I was really worried that I wasn't going to, be with Nina. And I just thought how unfair that would be for her.
Mm.
My mother passed away 20 years ago. My brother, he was 17 when Mum went. And I just saw what it did to him. It's this craziest thing. He's ended up being the most successful one of all of us. The adversity life gave him, he just rose above. Yeah, but I was worried because I had those memories of what death does to you. I was 30 when Mum passed away, but I chose to drink it away, and it didn't really work out. But all the brothers and sisters had a different way of dealing with it. I was just worried that I didn't want to leave Nina like that. So it's me just being honest, going, please. And that's how I felt.
Is it difficult to be that honest in something that people that you've never met will hear?
I decided not to play the song live.
Oh.
Mm.
So when we did it on that tour, and then people have asked us since, and I said, no, I don't do it anymore. That's from that era. Just leave it. Just walk away from it. But yeah, no, it was full on. Death's kind of been this big thing in my life. I mean, thinking back to my mother's, all my grandparents then died. It's like a whole top of our family just got wiped out straight away. I was just hoping, people talk about that stuff. I hope that's the answer explains it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting, like, to think about like the kind of personal approach to your lyrics, because a lot of your songs, even prior to your latest release, do feature the word I. So we were wondering, is this kind of personal approach reflected in your use of the first person perspective in your lyrics? Like, when you write about I or me, is it you, or are you kind of embodying like a character or some other persona?
Yeah, some of those situations would be me. Other people, I'm trying to put myself in the place of the person facing the adversity, dish down to them, or the temptations, or the glory, or the failings. Trying deep method acting, I think. Yeah. I think that's also why a lot of people come and talk to me about the lyrics. I gave an example of two people, but I've had a lot of people come and speak to me because everyone has adversity in their life.
Mm.
Has anyone ever taken something away from your songs that you kind of didn't really ever want someone to take away? Has anyone like massively kind of misinterpreted in a way that went against what you felt you were trying to convey or the story you're trying to tell?
I think once you make art, once you put it in the world, that's it. You can't really stop what happens next. No, I've just been surprised how far it has traveled. I met some people I never would have thought. Yeah, it's just really interesting. But yeah, and I do know that once you make art and you let it out, you can't really complain, or it's over. It's gone. I was surprised by the guy who was street fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a street fighting song. I suppose I'd be thinking of, I don't know, gangster rap or something. I don't know.
I've listened to music at the gym, but I've never used it for a street fight.
So, like, if you were to write from like a third person perspective, like, do you think that like it would result in kind of very different responses from listeners? Like if you said he, she, they, whatever, rather than I?
Oh yeah, I bet I mostly wouldn't be able to stick to that ritual. I'd break the rules. I'd have to be, I don't think it'll work for me. I can try not to, but I'm sure I'd go back to it. Sometimes when I write, I have all the guidelines, but when you're doing live, in the studio, a whole new line will appear and comes in there. And definitely sometimes usually from the eye. Yeah, I could try. I might break it.
Fair enough.
One other kind of feature we noticed of your lyrics is, the songs themselves can sometimes be, quite abstract, and you bring in, of course, you mentioned elements of fantasy and sci-fi. We did notice that the individual word choice you use are often quite straightforward, especially for metal, a genre that kind of has a stereotype of people using, gigantic words they found in thesauruses and things like that.
Students. They were medical students.
Yeah.
The reason I say that recently, I had to go and obviously become a nurse. You have to do these science papers about the human body. I'm going through these books and going, oh my God, this is all heavy metal. And I just think, it's proving once again that most heavy metal musicians are quite, if they haven't done this paper, I just thought that was really crazy. Maybe my vocabulary has been small. I failed English at school. I had a massive problem of being able to read and write when I was a kid. So yeah, maybe my vocabulary is quite small. So the word choices, because I thought about it. Yeah, I thought they might come up.
Because
I guessed well.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we were doing like some counts on a lot of songs, and again, we don't want to say this is like simple or anything, but we just noticed that a lot of songs kind of average towards 1 syllable, 2 syllable words. And is that something that like, is there an effect that creates that you're going for, or is that just kind of what comes out when you write?
A recent review celebrating our 10th year anniversary puts my use of one word syllables, whatever, as one of the main reasons of our success in New Zealand.
Oh,
interesting. Why is that?
yeah. What?
And I just thought, it's like, okay, maybe it's just the way, just trying to get the message out in a format that's straightforward. I'm not going to disguise it or hide it amongst large words. I'm actually going to use words people on the street use, because this is how we talk.
Is there any influence in your past interest in punk that's there at all, do you think? Or
it could be. I could be in the punk thing, because I remember trying to write punk rock lyrics, which is pretty hard mid-'80s because everything had kind of already been done. But we just had to write about angry skinheads in Wellington. I just remember, I think it really does go back to my struggling with the English language at school. I mean, I really struggled. It was just so tough. As I grew older, I forced it, because I was washing dishes in Sydney, and I met quite a few people who could have been academics in kitchens, but were just drug addicts. It just had dropped out. So I was surrounded by people who talked about literature. Actually, a chef called Kipalera, he really pushed me. He said, your vocabulary needs to get bigger. And I struggled to know how to do that. So I just tried to read, and I had massive problems actually understanding what I was reading. Like, I could read a whole page and I just didn't know what had happened. So I've had to try and learn, how do I retain the information, or even upload it to my brain. I think I've always been jealous of people who just got language like it just flew. They could spell, they could read, and it was just like I thought there was a superpower. But if I got that superpower, I could change my life. I wouldn't be doing this fucking cooking, in a restaurant under the heat, surrounded by junkies. If you have the gift of words, treasure it. Don't take it for granted. So many of us don't. I have to work really hard on it. So that's why I think it's just how I talk.
Oh, a lot of that resonates. I can guarantee you that me and Jess have both had to reread the same page 4 or 5 times.
Many times, yeah.
Sometimes it just doesn't go in your brain. It just doesn't enter.
Yeah.
And it's just, I suppose I've been lucky, because I was always surrounded by people who were really intellectual, who could have great conversations, and saw the world in a different way. I learned to argue with them. I learned to have these discussions, but I just felt like my hand was tied behind my back. So even my daughter, when she was like really young, I remember taking to the library in Lower Hutt. We walked in, and she's 3 or 4, and I say, "Look at this. This is all yours. It's free." And just trying to encourage from a really early age the beauty of words and the beauty of knowledge.
One syllable style of word that we noticed doesn't really appear in your lyrics is swearing. There's very, very few curse words. Damn, I think, is the only one that you've ever used in a song. Are these things that you try to avoid in your lyrics?
I came through quite a, when I grew up, swearing was huge. It was just the noise of my youth, my family home. I don't know. I just resent it. I hate it when I failed my swearing. It means I've lost who I am, because I'm swearing now. I've lost the argument. I've lost the ability to have critical thinking. I've lost. So swearing to me is my weakest moment. So if music's meant to be my proudest, or me trying to convey a message, I shouldn't ever have to use a swear word to tell the story. That's how I look at it. But I just upset by swearing. If you grew up in a house where it was used all the time, it's just a horrible thing. I fought against it. I am guilty of swearing because I've sworn heaps through my life. It's mostly through anger.
Yeah, that's an interesting take because, like, you know, as you know, like in Australia and New Zealand, like swearing's so common in like everyday language.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm talking about is more upsetting family life. It's just, it was a weapon.
Yeah.
But I didn't like as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, swearing can be used, you know, to degrade you or
yeah, of course,
point out your failings. So that's what upset me about swearing. Proving once again the power in it.
Yeah.
The words. I would choose to use them.
So yeah, speaking again of like common themes in or common components of your songs, we noticed that like there seems to be a lot of repeated choruses or repeated lines and stuff in a lot of your songs. Like, you know, if we look at Wolves and Prey off your last album, for instance, there's repetition of the praise, pray for blood, first light of the sun. What's the purpose of the repeated parts in your lyrics?
They're sort of going back to pop music. I'm trying to put hooks in there. Yeah. I mean, I love a great crafted song. So I think that's my attempt. It's not really successful. It's my attempt at making a song more popular than it maybe should be. But yeah. Also, for audiences to be able to sing, you have a phrase, just say it's a good phrase. Well, it doesn't have to be good if they like it. Nothing to do with the person who writes it. The audience will choose if they like the words or not. But if they choose a statement or a sentence they like and they sing it, once again, it changes. The song changes again, it has power, another power. Yeah. So that's my attempt at that. It doesn't always work.
It's very important to you then that, because you mentioned, you know, making it so that people can understand what you say, modulating how you sing, you know, these lyrics that people can hear and this sort of accessibility, making lyrics that is accessible to your audience is something you feel very important.
Oh, I tell you, we want to be the Beatles of metal. We want to be like, oh, these are great songs. You know, and in 20 years' time, people will cover them. Country bands, hopefully. Then the circle is complete. But no, that's a lot of. Our band is two main songwriters, Nathan and Clayton, and there's a lot of rivalry between them with the music. Nathan's, you know, Oz on drums, but he writes the majority of the songs. Clayton is the dark horse he kind of writes these songs that the audience love the most. So there's this really amazing rivalry. And then I get to fucking sing to the stuff. I get to write to the stuff. So I'm really thankful. But there's a lot of, people don't turn up with stuff that's not thought out, you know, because they don't want to embarrass themselves. There's just that competition. I'd recommend any band to have it, but it's great to watch, and I love it. I try and feed it too sometimes.
Does that level of accessibility create a sense of risk at all? And that, like, you know, if you're just doing a death metal scream, you know, you never hear what you're saying unless they look up the lyrics. If your music is more accessible, is it more easy for people to maybe, like, you know, cut it apart?
I thought people might not like stuff we do as we changed, as we became I don't know. It's just it's so weird. I mean, I do love when we've done albums because we get so deep into it and kind of create a piece of art. And we've been really lucky. It's been embraced, especially in our own country, especially in an era of COVID when the only people who can tour are your fucking local bands. We just played some of our biggest venues in New Zealand. And I'm so glad we just worked on our own country in Australia, if you know what I mean. This song, there's so much that goes into it. You know, people are turning up with these pieces of music. I mean, I've been pushed to write more, and people are fighting for their thing on it. It's quite amazing. I think we're quite lucky.
So, as a maybe final question, if you like, what do you think, would you say are the kind of fundamental purposes of the lyrics of your music, and perhaps even more broadly in a genre like metal?
For me, I'm finally I think it's me working out my place on planet Earth. That is, and I didn't realize it till we can now talk about it. At every moment, it's just been how I felt at that moment. But if I look back, I think it's me getting better or I think it goes back to that sort of, born, death, rebirth. I don't believe I'm an atheist. You know, I just think, who knows what's next? I think that's the whole purpose. does that sound so? It sounds really selfish to think that maybe the whole thing has just been me to realize. Our reality is, our perspective is so individual. What you see in your life is totally different from what I see, but that is your reality. I'm maybe just trying to make sense of it, and I've been lucky enough to be given a vehicle and a wonderful audience that sort of come for the ride to allow me to just work stuff out. The only sad thing about music is that for me, it's made me isolate myself from just a few friends and my family, like my daughter mainly. So I feel it's been a lonely place. Because quite often people only see you as the character of the person on stage. They don't actually ever think about the human being. But sometimes you have to say goodbye to the human being to find the words to become the character on stage. It's just this weird fucking thing, which I'm still trying to make sense of. So that's why I kind of walked away from music at the moment, because it's just like, I just need time out. And if it actually also helps other people, well, then that's fucking amazing. It's definitely made me want to search for the meaning of words and to understand their power. We have to be careful what we say. You know, I mean, in a way that's can create a storm, it can create a revolution, it can create love, you know, it can create sadness. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to work it out. This is why I chose to talk to you guys, because I thought, what a strange query about words. And for me, like the guy who failed English, I went, oh my God, have I been redeemed? It was just this beautiful thing. So I'll leave it at that. I hope I've answered your quest for words.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yes,
I do.
Definitely.
I'm on my own quest myself. But yeah, I think at the moment, I think there's talk of us being in Australia, in Sydney and Melbourne in November.
Oh, awesome.
So you guys let us know, and we'll get some comp tickets to the show.
Oh my God.
That'd be awesome.
That would be fantastic. That'd be incredible.
But yeah, so keep in touch.
Yeah.
But,
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too. When we just asked before we finish up, where's the best place for listeners to find any updates on Beastwars tours, music, that kind of thing?
Well, at the moment, what I've just told you is disclose that information. Facebook, but we're not really doing anything at the moment. Spotify has all our music.
Yep.
I believe the vinyl pressing of the reissue of 10 years, I think that's in some shops in Australia right now.
Okay.
Or for New Zealand. The internet.
All right.
And you mentioned a new single as well. Is there a release date for that to look forward to?
That's all coming out with a video, and what's happened, because apparently, sounds crazy, but there's PVC shortage in the world, so they can't press the records. So it's just like, so the music can't come out. But
crazy.
We've paid for it and everything. We're just waiting on it. So that's so delayed. Shit, it might even be a single release tour of Australia. You know?
Okay.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We're bringing a record to sell to you guys, but that might be. Who knows? It's just different times at the moment with COVID. But yeah. Okay.
Wonderful.
Cool. Well, we'll leave those links in the description of the episode as well, so everyone can find that information.
Yeah.
And look forward to hopefully seeing you in November.
No, it was a great talk. It was really nice to be able to talk about that stuff. Yeah, I've surprised myself. I'm talking honestly with you guys, but it's great. I appreciate it. And have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Lingua Italica. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you stay tuned for our next episode. Before we leave, we just wanted to acknowledge that this podcast is recorded on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging.